Hey gang, and welcome back. This week we're going to do something a little different, and I'm going to answer the questions for your 5K Q&A. So I realized that we're probably closer to 7K than 5K, and I figured it was about time to get this done. So let's run through some of your questions and get some answers. Alexander Lazarov asks, well, I'm not going to read that out loud, but he basically says, what got you started on YouTube and what motivates you to keep going? Well, basically, I had hurt my back and I was looking for something to do. I was playing Magic about 3 or 4 times a week, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to sort of bring some of that to the big screen? We have a lot of really interesting players in Montreal. I thought it would be really fun for people to see the players and the decks that they build. Jacob Smith asks, who is your favorite EDH commander of all time? I think it's probably a tie between Prosh and Krenko. They're both token-based decks, which is kind of my thing, but I think Prosh wins out because I love Jund as a color pairing. Mutilated Bunny asks, which generally do you think expresses your deck style and or playstyle the most? Combo? 171 Relic asks, how long have you been Canadian, buddy? Well, as of Monday, 32 years. Not Good MTG Tips, Tricks, and Drafts asks, why do you love Commander? I love Commander because it basically allows me to play with any card from almost any set from over the years. It's also a great way to be able to play with more than one player, which is frankly what I want to do most of the time. It kind of stinks to be a third person and not be able to play and have to watch and wait. Jess and Ryan Mully ask, what is the main reason you've taken apart decks or abandoned the main idea behind them? The main reason I've taken apart a deck is after I've built it, it didn't perform as well as I thought it would, or I didn't really find that I enjoyed it. Oftentimes if a deck is very focused around something like blue or counters, I'm not going to enjoy it, so I take it apart pretty quickly. Riftingard 12 basically asks a large question, but it boils down to what are my thoughts on proxies? I'm not a huge fan of proxies. I understand if you own the card but you have it in multiple decks, you can use a proxy then, but I find that a lot of people just use proxies for cards that they don't currently have. Some people might not have this problem, but I do, and I don't particularly enjoy going up against a deck that always has Mana Drain, Force of Will, and Mana Crypt in it. Scott Taylor asks, what have you found to be the most rewarding part of creating this channel? And also, what have you found to be the most frustrating? The most rewarding part I found is the ability to go to different stores and play with different people. It's really pushed me out of my comfort zone of just going to one store. I've visited, I think at this point, about 4 or 5 and played in them. It's really cool, you get to meet a lot of really interesting people, see a lot of really interesting decks. The only part that I dislike about having created this channel is the people who feel the need to make comments that attack people personally. I don't like those. It really irritates me when someone says something about someone's physical appearance. These people are often nice enough to let me record the games for your entertainment, and it really stinks for someone to go out of their way to make a comment about that. I think it's inappropriate, rude, and very childish. Russell asks, how do you know which cards are being played each turn when you are editing? Do you write it down and plays on paper while filming, or each player to get right down? Russell asks, how do you know which cards are being played each turn when you are editing? Do you write down the plays on paper while filming, or get each player to write down what they are doing as they are doing it? Basically, I record with the audio, and usually I'm pretty good at remembering what happens. When I'm watching the game, if I don't remember what card it is, I'm usually able to contact the people I'm playing with and they have a good recollection of the matter. Demand3636 asks, hey, were you a counselor at Camp Rama? No. Switch Stop 7 asks, aside from Magic, what are some of your other hobbies? Until I moved to New Jersey, comic book collecting was a big one. I sold off most of my comic book collection because it didn't make sense to move with them. I've kept all of my graphic novels, but I sold off all of my singles. I'm also an avid reader. I read constantly, and that's kind of what I've been doing when I'm not making videos or playing games and just dorking around. Ari Gelfand asks, why move to a new city? We moved to New Jersey because my wife got a job at Princeton, and that was pretty much it. Lexa20 asks, what did you have for breakfast? I had cereal with coconut milk and berries. Weebiz369 asks, do you listen to any rock metal, or is your long hair entirely unrelated to that? I listen to rock, I listen to metal, and my hair is a little bit unrelated to that, but it did start growing when I started listening to those kinds of music. Carl Mailer asks, how often do you go back through your old videos and watch yourself play? All the time. Basically, I go back and watch to make sure that I don't make the same mistakes twice in future videos, although that has happened on occasion before. Mr. Tristan the King asks, what were your inspirations to make MTG YouTube videos? I kind of mentioned that before, but basically a back injury and a lot of free time. Weston White asks, do you play any other formats like Modern or Standard? If so, what decks do you play? I played Standard during the Innistrad and Return to Ravnica block, but I stopped shortly after Theros came out. I'd started playing Modern before that and I built Blue-Red Storm, but they banned Seething Song and that kind of killed it for me. I didn't only play EDH for a long time, but one of my friends suggested I get back into Modern, so I built Splinter Twin. You all know what happened, so I've stopped playing Modern again. Henry Zakay asks, what's my favorite deck from a non-EDH format? It was probably Splinter Twin. Modern as a whole has a lot of really fun decks, and I found Splinter Twin, despite the fact that it was a combo deck, was a really fun deck that was still able to win even without enabling the combo. Dane Erickson asks, of the regular players shown in your gameplays, who is the most entertaining to play against? Can be based on deck construction or wit/humor. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of people I really enjoy playing with. At this point from Montreal, I'd say Adam and Kevin are probably my favorite players to play against. Kevin is always a lot of fun and we're cracking jokes the whole time, and Adam always has really well built decks that really force you to be a better player in order to get around them. In New Jersey, I have to say Sean, Tony, and Harry are probably my 3 favorite players, mostly because I play with them the most. Harry's really good at illustrating with his hands what's going on, which is great for editing. Sean always has very fun decks and they're usually foily, and Tony's just a real character. The Manus asks, what is your opinion on competitive EDH? Do you think there's a place for it, and would you consider ever doing a pod of it on camera? I don't feel strongly on competitive EDH. I think it's good, I think it's fun, I think a lot of people will enjoy it, but I don't necessarily know if it's for me. If you look at the deck lists, the price point is quite high, and I find that that's a bit of a stop for me. That being said, if I ever had enough of a budget to build a competitive EDH deck, I might build one just to have and have some fun with. Alex Proctor asks, what was your first commander and do you still play them? My first commander was Krenko and he's still around today. My wife plays him for the most part, but I still enjoy him because I love tribal and I love goblins. VDub asks, are all of the cards you use real or proxies? Yes, I don't use proxies. All the cards you see me play are real. I can't say the same for everyone I play with though. Oliver Dolcino asks, could you make a Mizzix Overload deck? I actually have a Mizzix deck, but I really don't like playing it. I'm not a big fan of blue. Clicky asks, what style of decks do you avoid making and why? I would probably say any kind of deck that's control or blue based. I don't like blue as a whole, I dislike counterspells, and getting Cyclonic Rift never feels good, so I can only imagine that casting it doesn't feel great. The Mr. Spartacus asks, do you 100% build your own decks or do you get ideas from other places and take it from there? A bit of both. Sometimes I get inspired by seeing something online or something I play against, and sometimes I have a great idea for my own. Clay T.I. Patterson asks, what's your best memory from your past when playing EDH? Basically, one of the games I recorded last Thursday is probably one of them, and you guys will get to see it pretty soon. Kitsune Legion asks, what are your opinions on the reserve list? Should it be abolished, stay as is, or just cut down? I don't have a strong opinion on the list at all. I have a bunch of the cards that are there that are worth quite a bit, but at the same time, I wouldn't mind if other people were able to get a hold of copies for a much cheaper price. YT Cobb asks, do you have multiple staples for different decks, or do you have a system where you swap them around or proxy them? I have multiple staples for different decks. I have like 7 copies of Demonic Tutor, a bunch of Sylvan Libraries, a bunch of fetch lands. I don't proxy anything, and I don't swap things around. McLovin Hawaii asks, tuck rule or no tuck rule? I will say I do kind of miss the tuck rule, especially for dealing with commanders like Derevi. Chris Flores asks, what is your favorite way to win the game? Probably the most unexpected way, like when I was playing against Fred, Adam, and Dylan, and I cast Natural Affinity against Adam's Blasphemous Act. Kevin Robertson asks, if you were introducing friends to Magic, would you consider Commander a good format to start with? No. There are too many cards, too many crazy interactions, and I think it would probably overwhelm them. I think the best way to do it is build simple decks that focus on one thing like burn, mill, ramp, counterspell, baddies, whatever you want, and go from there. Mornell Rillo Raza asks, where did you learn how to edit games, since rather than it being long and drawn out for an hour, they're kept to around the 15 or 10 minute mark? I'm self-taught. I had a copy of Adobe Premiere Pro, and I began fiddling with it over time and got to the point where I am now. This isn't a good example because I deleted the footage already, but typically this is what a game looks like in the end. Ethan Clark asks, what do you think is the best commander to play on a limited budget? I would probably say something tribal and probably something monocolored. Elves, goblins, wizards, merfolk, something like that. Something you can get a bunch of staples for and then build your way up into an EDH collection from there. And now I'll pick the 2 winners for a single pack of Amonkhet being mailed to them. First up we have Shadow Jarek. So please be sure to look for a comment from me coming in the future, and you'll have to make sure you have your YouTube comments on. And the second winner is Nuka Josh. Are there any mechanics you would like to see coming to MTG anytime soon? So again, Nuka Josh, please make sure you have your messages on so I can contact you for your mailing details. Anyway gang, thanks for watching, and please be sure to tune in every Monday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for more videos.